The night was heavy with a strange silence, the kind of silence that felt almost rehearsed, as if the air itself knew something terrible was about to unfold. In the shadow of the Low Country's moss-covered oaks, the Murdaugh legacy, once untouchable, began to crack louder than ever before. What nobody expected was that the truth, buried under decades of influence, was finally crawling to the surface, ready to tear apart one of South Carolina's most powerful families. As investigators reopened several suspicious deaths tied to the family, a chilling pattern started emerging, one that pointed to manipulation, secrets, and a web of lies spanning generations. Locals whispered that the Murdaugh name was cursed, but what if it wasn't a curse at all? What if it was something far darker? Something crafted intentionally? By the time the first officer stepped into the reopened cases, the story had twisted so deeply that each new clue contradicted the last. One question hung in the air like a ghost. How many people had to be silenced for the Murdaugh empire to survive? And worse, how many more would follow? The investigation took a sharp turn when authorities revisited the death of Stephen Smith, whose body was found mysteriously on a rural road back in 2015. At first glance, it looked like a hit-and-run. But the evidence, every bruise, every wound, every inconsistency in the reports painted a darker picture. Something had happened that night, something violent and deliberately hidden. Rumors connected the Murdaughs to Stephen, raising uncomfortable questions that many townsfolk had avoided for years. Why had the case been dismissed so quickly? Why had certain names never been included in interviews? The deeper investigators dug, the more it felt like someone had slammed the brakes on the original case to protect a secret that could destroy everything. Now, with pressure mounting and the truth threatening to break through, the Smith family finally felt a spark of hope. But behind that hope was a heavy fear that the truth might reveal something too painful, too dangerous, something the Low Country had been forced to forget. Just when the Stephen Smith investigation intensified, another case resurfaced: the tragic death of Paul Murdaugh's friend, Mallory Beach. Her disappearance in the freezing river had shocked the entire community. But it wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a night fueled by reckless behavior, privilege, and unanswered questions. Witnesses from the boat crash spoke again, this time with fewer fears and more honesty. Their testimonies revealed inconsistencies, pressure, and attempts to sway the narrative. It became clearer than ever that Mallory's death wasn't only about a crash. It was about the influence that protected the people responsible. As Mallory's family watched the truth unfold, one thing became painfully clear: justice had been delayed for too long. And in the shadow of every new revelation, the Murdaugh name loomed like a storm cloud refusing to pass. The investigation spiraled further when financial crimes tied to Alex Murdaugh exploded into public view. Missing funds, stolen settlements, falsified documents, each detail painted a portrait of a man living a double life. To the world, Alex was a respected attorney. But to those now digging through the evidence, he had become something else entirely. Victims began to step forward, one after another, telling stories of betrayal that left audiences speechless. These weren't just financial mistakes, they were deliberate acts carried out over years. How could one man manipulate so many lives without anyone noticing? And just when investigators thought they had uncovered the full truth, a new revelation emerged, suggesting Alex wasn't just stealing money, he was using it to hide something far more sinister. The tension reached a breaking point with the shocking murder of Maggie and Paul. Their death shook the entire country, igniting a wave of fear and disbelief. How could a tragedy so devastating strike such a powerful family? And more importantly, why? As police pieced together the timeline, many details began to contradict Alex's statements. His alibi wavered, his behavior raised eyebrows, and his sudden emotional breakdowns in front of the cameras felt rehearsed, almost too perfectly timed. People began to wonder, was Alex a grieving husband and father, or something else entirely? The deeper investigators looked, the more they realized this wasn't just a family tragedy, it was the epicenter of a storm that had been gathering for years. Then came the moment that shocked the world. Alex Murdaugh was officially charged with the murders of his wife and son. The courtroom filled with tension as the once invincible lawyer now stood trembling, the weight of decades of secrets crushing him from within. The truth was no longer hidden behind power or connections. Experts analyzed his every expression, every hesitation, and every contradiction. Was he truly the mastermind behind so many tragedies? Or was he another product of a corrupt legacy that demanded silence and loyalty above all else? The jury watched closely, aware that their decision would echo through history. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered, some seeking justice, others simply drawn to the unfolding human tragedy. Whatever the verdict, one thing was undeniable: the Murdaugh story had become bigger than a family. It had become a symbol of how far corruption can reach when left unchecked. Testimonies in court, shocking revelations that felt like scenes straight out of a crime thriller. Friends, colleagues, and former associates took the stand, exposing details that no one had expected. Each person's story added another piece to a puzzle that had grown terrifyingly large. The prosecution painted a chilling narrative, one of desperation, lies, and a carefully crafted facade collapsing under its own weight. But the defense fought back hard, arguing that the evidence was circumstantial, that the accusations were fueled by media pressure and public outrage. Through it all, Alex remained strangely calm, a calm that left everyone in the room questioning what he was thinking. Was it acceptance, guilt, or the final attempt of a man who had lived a lifetime of manipulation? As closing statements began, the courtroom felt suffocating. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every lie and contradiction came crashing together like a storm aimed at one man. The prosecution demanded justice for Maggie and Paul. The defense insisted Alex was a victim of prejudice and faulty assumptions. But beyond the legal arguments, there was something more powerful happening: families shattered, lives destroyed, and a community trying desperately to understand how such darkness had grown unnoticed. In their own backyard, the trial wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about uncovering the truth, no matter how painful, and as the jury prepared for deliberation, the entire country held its breath, waiting for a verdict that would change everything. When the verdict was finally delivered, the courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Alex Murdaugh was found guilty. For a moment, time stopped. Some cried, some gasped, others simply stared, unable to comprehend the fall of a man once so powerful. As Alex was led away in handcuffs, the world watched a dynasty crumble. The Murdaugh name, once synonymous with influence, now stood as a reminder that no one, not even the powerful, is above justice. But justice didn't erase the suffering. It didn't bring back lost lives. It didn't heal the wounds that would remain for generations. Families affected by the case hugged each other tightly. For them, the verdict wasn't victory, it was closure. A step toward healing. A moment they had been denied for far too long. The story of the Murdaugh murders isn't just a true crime case, it's a tragedy that exposes the darkest side of power, privilege, and silence. Behind every headline was a mother, a son, a friend. Real people whose lives were taken forever. And long after the cameras leave, the Low Country still carries their ghosts. But stories like this matter because they remind us why truth is important, why justice must never be compromised, why every voice deserves to be heard. And as we uncover each layer of this complex scandal, one thing becomes clear: silence allowed darkness to grow, and speaking up finally brought light. If you felt the weight of this story, if you believe that justice should always be pursued no matter how powerful the accused, then support this channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, so more people can understand the truth behind the world's most chilling mysteries. Your support keeps these stories alive and ensures they're never forgotten.